Hey you guys, it's Jet888. It's March 8th, that's Monday. The George Floyd trial is going on right now. This Washington Post stream or channel, look at the seal, look at the picture of this. It's just a citizen growing crops or working on the field, and you got an Indian in the background with the sun rays going on. And look how this is, it almost looks like that Indian's going to be raiding this person's property and goods. And I think that the George Floyd trial is going to be a setup for people not being happy with the outcome, and they're going to start riots. Manufactured riots are going to start upping the ante here, so people who are rioting for our rights can be looked at as enemies of the state. So the murder for Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer charged in the death of George Floyd, begins on March 8th with jury selection. Chauvin is charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter. I'm going to prove to you what a circus this is, and why this is just for people to take up our time, waste our energy, create panic, and create an excuse for them to be at war with the people. So the murder trial for Derek Chauvin on March 8th, and let's start there. In Jewish gematria, and this is how they communicate, there's March 8th, here are the numbers. You'll see here, I'm looking at the actual page for gematria, and God is Sag is the very first entry. So when I look at that and use anagrams to figure out that, God is Sag is Adios GGS. See here, God is Sag, that's God is Gas, 259, 259, do you see that? And then looking at GGS, when we decode that, here are the numbers, 10433. GGS is Derek. And it's Derek that they all have you guys believing that he's on trial. Derek is an actor. We can keep looking down the list, and there's March 8th is also 259. March 8th in gematria, 259. March 8th also equals 100. And God the Omega is 100. During the Super Bowl, I was trying to decode the Super Bowl halftime series. And when I looked at the Raymond James Stadium, it ended up being SAIT mud, and that's stratospheric aerosol injection. That's gas. SAIs can be gas, the way they spray them. And Koseka, he came into, this guy's Ray Koseja, he's in lots of the decoding. He came up also on the stadium, the Raymond James Stadium. And part of the decoding of that on that day, on the Super Bowl, I think that was the 7th of February, the numbers were vaccinated and destruction of America were part of the decoding. And the 201, remember the event 201? And remember one of the sponsors was Geico? So here are some of the decodes from the Geico. It's a keg beer, co-keg. And the Geico Gecko was Koseja is gas, Coke gas SAIs. So it came down to this. The Gecko equals the Geico, Warren Buffett, the Raymond James Stadium. It all started to come together. Now I'm jumping around right now, but I think we need to realize that this whole thing is a stage. And look at all these numbers all equal up to all point to one direction, and it's a big circus act. So the word enactment came up, so I looked at that as well, And that ended up being NC, NBA, Game, Alicia, Capitol Hill, Tile Khalif. I got to the word Q, Kabbalah, Delia, and that, when I looked at Delia, is I Hadal. And looking at Hadal, it ended up being V-shaped, and I know V equals 22, which equals MAGA. So the Hadal zone also says it's the deepest region in the ocean, because these are a bunch of pirates. But anyhow, so when I looked at the word here, hadophiligic, it ended up, when I looked at the anagram, AGHA, police, I looked at AGHA, and it was Chief Master Lord Police. So maybe that's where we're here right now at the trial for Derek. Looking further, the AGHA, police, it's the civilian or military officer. AGHA is actor. AGHA was an Indian film actor of Bollywood. Anyhow, why I'm going back to the Super Bowl is because when I looked at the name Tom Brady, who was part of the Super Bowl, he was nominated MVP because the Super Bowl was a satanic ritual kickoff. And here we go. So Tom Brady, here's looking at Tom Brady's name. 667 and 98 are the two numbers we need to look at. It's rays A and O, and that's alpha and omega. And there's Tom Brady right there, right below the rays A and O, which is alpha and omega. And those numbers line up perfectly. See how they're all the same? Tom Brady, and that is the Raymond code. And here we go down to the English and Simple Gematria. Again, Ray is December ID, God's reign, alpha and omega. The A-O Lord, that's alpha and omega. It keeps referring to Ray is God. Tom Brady again. Black people is one of the codes for 98. Here we're looking at Chauvin, which is Derek Chauvin, the police officer on trial. Raymond date proof, and there's Chauvin, sorry. And it's interesting too that Chauvin and David Koresh have the same numbers. Remember, David Koresh is the Waco Branch Davidians sect. So David Koresh is also Chauvin, and also see the word Pa? Pa, if we look at like father, Pa, P-A, Pa, father is also alpha, which is also, so Abba and father are basically the same. And alpha and omega is mentioned here. And they say God defines himself as alpha, God the Father are one, alpha and omega. And Tom Brady are the same numerical equivalent as A and O. That's alpha and omega. That's rays A and O. Here's all the A's and O's, rays, A and O, all about God, Koseka. I'm just trying to show you how it all is adding up in the same direction. So when we see the name Chauvin and David Koresh, and you look at the anagrams of David Koresh and Pa being father, the anagram for David Koresh is adios VK heard, and I'll look at that one first. So adios VK heard, and VK, there's your 33. There's Dave VK, Raymond info, and pack the courts. It's all the same, pack the courts. It's all a stage. VK also equals test key and Lumpy. And Lumpy the clown just happens to be a Disney character. So here we have a Lumpy the clown, and they talk about Andy Davis. When you look at the anagram, it's David Nays as a David Koresh. And Nays is negative vote, to emphasize a point. So nay, the nays have it. And in the Lumpy the clown here, you've got this, and you've got the election. There's a clown, there's an election. They talk about Bart Cop. So Bart Cop, entertainment, the nays have it. Here's another clown. Fool 'em all. El pluribus foolum. So lumpy again is Red's dream. Red's dream is rearmed deads. We look at deads. There's the 103 and 32. We've got the NFL and the Rams, so we're back to the Super Bowl. Remember that? We're back to the Super Bowl. See the ram? And see the omega sign there, the white helmet above the dolphin? See the omega? Football, ballot, it's omega. This is part of the decoding I did for the Super Bowl. Tom Brady, Raymond code, Rays A and O, mainly seamen, pirates, Ray is God. Do you see the same numbers coming up for this trial? So we continue down, and there's pig, which oftentimes is how they refer to cops who's on trial right now. Same numbers. Will he go to jail? Bye and agenda. Bye and adios are the same words. So I also looked at the words spare the rod, spoil a child. He's a predator. It came up with alpha X omega. And it also was Ray my judge, judge my karma, can't judge Ray. So we'll see if Derek Chauvin, if he pays for evil. So here's the judge. They're talking about Court of Appeals. And again, they're going to recess. They come on for 5 seconds, and then they recess. They come on for a minute, and then they recess. Do you guys see how they're wasting your time? They sent the jurors home. I mean, what are people? See, people are sitting around wasting their time. They're being distracted right now. So something else is probably being laid out and gone on because they're distracting us. Anyhow, they're waiting for the appeals. And they're going to recess again for 1:30. So they come on for less than 30 seconds and just to recess again. Yep, it's all a stage. It's all a game, you guys. It's a stage. And guess what stage is? Stage and gates are the same letters. It's an anagram. So the anagram also for Genesis is C sign. So C sign 324. It's also headsman, the masked man. We just saw a masked man, right? Just now. And there's the 100 is Black Mamba. You know how we all started this whole COVID thing where they're wearing, the reason why they're wearing the mask, Black Mamba, is also 100 and T. We come back to March 8th, which is today, which is when they're having the trial, equals 100. So when our first letter or word that comes up under March 8th, God is SAG, that's God is gas, that's adios GGS. GGS is 33, that's Derek. So that's kind of conflicting because we've got them saying adios Derek, that means he would be convicted. But then that other one said under the David Koresh anagram name is David Nays. So that's weird. Which one is it? But under March 8th, the 100 number here, and the God is Omega, this name comes up a lot. And I think that it has to do with the frequency rays and waves that we're going to be dealing with. So part of this also, March 8th, is that says INRI America. When you look at this anagram also, it could be crime in a air, or a air crime, and AI rain crime. Either way, it's coming from the sky. So March 8th equivalent, INRA America, the anagram, crime in an air, AI rain crime, IRI in camera, which we're seeing this whole trial, supposedly in camera, if they can get away from always recessing, but IRI equals gas. So there's IRI, And there's RII. It's SAG, but it's gas backwards. So gassing can be either gassing people, affecting people with the poisoning of people with gas or fumes, like gassing people, thoroughly entertaining, enjoyable, amusing, which is what this whole court thing is to people. It's entertainment for them. Gassing is a term used in prison. It's interesting here, Michigan and American have the same numbers of 64. Anyhow, what they did today is they took up all your people's time. They gassed you with this murder trial and they didn't get anything done. They put you on, 3 or 4 recesses, but I didn't watch all of it. But I was here enough, about 5 minutes, and we got, 3, 4 recesses? That's a waste of your all's time. It's also interesting how high up the word Michigan is up on this, the Jewish gematria list. That's kind of another sign that this is part of the whole gassing of America. And it's March, so March 8th is 3/8. And it also happens to be Alice, which is, you all saw the court trial that she had. It was a sham, it was a scam, like mask, and there's your word beam, like ray, as in AI. 38's also Kabbalah, and mag, see the gam above Kabbalah, and AMG, that's mag, like MAGA, as in make America great again, as in paganism is MAGA spin. So just looking at George Floyd's name, here's God's Ray's name again, Fear God Ray. It's almost time. Experiment, Roundup. Here's the 119 number of George Floyd's name. We've got the Eternal Ray. Here's the Ray name again. All the Ray name with George Floyd, and the Omega again. So that Super Bowl kickoff was a satanic ritual. Here we're getting closer with the George Floyd thing. This is probably going to be the kickoff for riots and stuff, is what this is, the God's Omega. And I think it takes us to who's controlling some of this. So I think the military is going to be responsible for what happens to the people, because they're going to be looking at people who riot as enemies of the state. And one thing I looked at is this person specifically, and I'm still trying to really figure out which side he's on, and I don't know if I'm going to like this answer, but here's U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General Tony Fiend. One first thing that was difficult for me not to notice was that star behind him on his left side, our right. It looks like a pagan symbol that just looks like a Baphomet head. And some of the things I've noticed make me feel like he's Q. So Lieutenant General Tony Fiend is currently serving as Vice Commander, Headquarters, U.S. Special Operations Command, Washington, D.C. He is responsible for planning. Remember, Q is always saying, trust the plan? So he's responsible for planning, coordinating, and executing actions with the Office of Secretary of Defense, the Joint Staff, the services, and other government agencies in the National Capital Region on behalf of the Commander USS OCOM. And just happens to be on this page also, we see the big D, as in the Operation Warp Speed, that commander, whatever it was, that general, whatever he was saying, D-Day is the beginning of the end. Accelerate, change, or lose. And there's D for D-Day. And all these people, these operators right here, they're all operating drones. This is down on his little, look at it, here's his list of all his stuff. Command pilot, aircraft flown, and he happens to be familiar with the MQ-9. That's interesting. My phone won't focus on the MQ. Let's look at that. So there's the drone, and it's the General Atomics MQ-9 Reaper, like the Death Reaper, the Grim Reaper. Anyhow, it's a drone, so indicates they're human ground controllers. So I just did some quick looking at his name, and the anagram is Buy-in Federation. N equals I am, so I am. By Federation 14 also equals dead. By UN Federation, New York, or NY, DB equals father, well, equals F, which equals Abba, which equals father. One of the anagrams for his name is also need obituary, NDFN, and NDFN equals alpha, which equals A alpha or A father. NDFN also equals King Ball, Kafo, I don't know what that is, Gold, Death, Kabbalah, which we saw that, Fire, Noah, SS, Adolf, Ocean, Change, Daddy, an End, and Mud. An End, remember the adios we saw? Remember when looking at the Chauvin's name? We see David Koresh, which is also adios, VK heard, and VK was pack the courts. And also that adios Drek VH. VH is Kabbalah, Beer, Alice, and Mob. So Mob is one of the big things, because remember they kept referring to those people at the Capitol Hill as a mob, just to give us gave them the justification to make us look like the enemies of the state. Anyhow, his name happens to have all these in it. And I did a video on him, and I looked at what all this meant, and I find it just interesting, just curious that his book comes out, his introduction of his new climate book comes out February 14th. Thanks, Mr. Stage. And his birthday just happens to be February 14th. And look at all the medals he's gotten. And when I did a really quick look on these medals, this one, I just picked one here, Bronze Star Medal, Brazened Mortals, that means ballsy. So brazened, unrestrained by sense of shame, rudely bold. This one medal here, Global War on Terrorism, which we think that, I think that most of us are aware that the whole terrorism, global terrorism label gave them a lot of liberties to take away our freedoms. But that's Global War on Terrorism is RR's labeling tomorrow. And we've seen how they label things. Does this look familiar to anyone? Here in this young girl's diary, she says, we'll be labeled as Jews soon, quite curious about it. In 1941-42, diary of young Czech girl named Sylvia discussed love, her friends, her looks. In a book, she mentioned many people are being transported to Poland, and it will reach us soon, she wrote just a few months before being sent to Sobibor extermination camp, where she was murdered with her family. Anyhow, I think that this is going to have a lot to do with what's coming. And there's just some things that are just, I guess, coincidental. You can't see it. I don't think you can see it on this, but this drone has an NY on its tail and a 566, AF 85, 566 NY. And his name just happens to be by UN Federation NYDB, and that's father. And the number 566 happens to be Ayn Rand, like Atlas Shrugged. And he happens to work for the Rand Corporation in Santa Monica. Here's the Rand Corporation. And look at all the research they do. Sorry about all the dust. Look at that. Look at all the dust. Look at all the research they do. Violent extremism. That would take care of mobs, right? Here's his authority control. What does that mean? See the 85 on the end of that Q? Has all those numbers in 85. There's the AF, 85, that's Air Force. There's your star. Here's all the military personnel behind the drones carrying out airstrikes on the enemies. Trump nominates for Air Force generals. And this says, as SOCOM's chief staff at MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, Barnfield, I don't know how to say that, assists the SOCOM commander and oversees personnel issues. If his appointment is confirmed, which it was, he will become the third highest commander at SOCOM. Now looking at these drones, the numbers on their tails, 252, Hidden Dragon, I'm the Bible Code, Microchip, The Elite, a Q-Rat, I'm a Killing Machine, 9, Mr. K, Iran War, 5, Sin, Fish's Panic, by the way, AI, we saw the AI in part of that decoding for David Koresh, and QFs. We also see on these drones that they were showing us RF 249, and 249 is football in Miami, Florida, which is where the Super Bowl 55 was. Looking at the word Reaper, because that's the drone name, it also has the word SAG, which is gas, in it, and rays, and masks. Mask is 63 as well. 1 o'clock is also when that judge said that they're going to adjourn to, is 1 o'clock. There you go. 1 o'clock is also 2:31, as is the Reaper. Remember, we saw also Ayn Rand, the Rand Corporation, and Atlas Shrugged is the anagram is Ultra Gas SH. Here's another perspective of Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Remember, our guy Tony worked for Rand Corporation. So D, gas, slaughter, and D is like as in D-Day, the beginning of the end, which was Operation Warp Speed's motto, which we've got the railroads here. Ayn Rand. And this just kept seeming to go back to the Super Bowl kickoff, which I think was their the kickoff to their ritual sacrifice, because I took all these numbers that they showed in this illustration for the Super Bowl. I added them all up, equaled 76, and 76 was gas sign, Bible codes. So it just kind of like the gas sign that we saw with this March 8th. So they're back to talking about the jury trial. Here I'm live with Reuters. Anyhow, these masked men behind their shields of protection, because they know people are going to be onto them soon. So I'm also going to look at the words that they use. So let's look at the word trial. So here's trial. 210:60. Trial is sacrificed in Moderna. Trial is also a lot of Q's there. Trial is also ray. There's your rays again. There's your police. So he's talking about exceptions right now. Now he's talking about if there's an appeal, the lower court loses. Also, the word being mentioned is parties, and parties equals pirates. The word trial also is the word kings. So he's talking about pre-trial appeals. Look, that word trial also is released in gematria. So he's saying that the court doesn't have the authority to hear the appeals. They're basically saying he's not in jurisdiction. Anyhow, these are big games being played. at our time, at our expense, you guys. This judge just mentioned March 29th too. They're talking about jury appeals still. Oh my God, they're talking about seating the jurors. Like, how are they going to seat them? So that judge mentioned March 29th, so that's 3/29. 3/29 is riots. And I also decoded the word elephants in this one of my videos. 3/29 is also, Mad Hatter, like Alice in Wonderland. Now, when I decoded the word elephant in one of my earlier videos, it came out to the penal, legally punishable. Also, no hide law. I no head like lethal W, the wall, but no hide law, and elephant is the penal. That's the anagram. And that's what we're going through right now. We're looking at the penal system. An anagram for Tom Brady, quarterback, was backyard quarter tomb, how to butcher cattle. So that judge was just saying that he doesn't even have jurisdiction to try him. Don't you think they'd figured that out earlier? He's saying the whole case might be stopped by an appeal. He's saying the entire case is being put on stop. Remember the Superbowl ritual? All the masks? The judge is going to ask his opinion to someone right now. Oh, good. He gets to take his mask off. Look, his hands are like a football, like the goal, football goal. So this judge is saying he doesn't even have jurisdiction to issue an order. No jurisdiction to issue an order. The court can't even entertain argument. There's another little goalpost sign there. So that judge just asked if he has to shut everything down and wait. I don't know if anyone saw my Go Ask Alice video, but it talked all about the sham. And here's some of the words that came up again. See how they keep coming up? Here's Black Swan events. So I think this guy is Q. And hopefully, I mean, who knows if I'm wrong or right, but some of the things I see, I'll go through it. And sorry, I'm throwing in the trial plus Q plus everything. I think that they're going to be trying to control the mobs, which is us. And I think that they're going to be using military forces to deal with the enemy of the state, which is us. This is what's going on right now, I think. This is what's going on. It's a joke in the court system. He's asking right now for the court to stop the jury selection. And do you see in this illustration, see how there's 4